My daughter called me the problem. I let the truth surface on its own. The text message arrived while I was washing dishes after Sunday dinner. Mom, we need to talk about your behavior. You're becoming the problem in this family. I stared at my phone, soap suds dripping onto the screen. The message was from my daughter, Victoria. Not a call. Not a face-to-face conversation. A cold, accusatory text sent from the guest room upstairs where she'd been staying for the past 2 weeks. My name is Patricia Reynolds. I'm 62 years old, and until that moment, I thought I understood my relationship with my daughter. I'd raised her alone after her father left when she was 3. I'd worked 2 jobs to put her through college. I'd been there for every milestone, every crisis, every celebration. Now she was calling me the problem. I dried my hands slowly, reading the message again. My behavior? What behavior? Asking why her husband Kyle never helped with dishes? Wondering why they'd extended their weekend visit into its 14th day? Mentioning that my retirement savings were meant for my future, not funding their lifestyle? I didn't respond immediately. Something told me to wait, to watch, to let whatever was happening play out naturally. That instinct saved everything. Victoria came downstairs an hour later, her expression set in that familiar mix of frustration and superiority. She developed that look somewhere in her late 20s, after marrying Kyle and adopting his family's attitude that financial success meant moral superiority. Did you get my message? She asked, not sitting down. I did, I replied calmly, continuing to wipe the counters. We need to discuss boundaries, Mom. Kyle and I have been talking, and we both feel you've been passive-aggressive since we arrived. I stopped wiping and looked at her directly. Passive-aggressive how? The comments about Kyle not helping. The questions about our plans. The way you've been acting like we're imposing when we're family. Each accusation landed like a small stone. I'd made one comment about Kyle leaving dishes in the sink. I'd asked once about their departure date because I had a doctor's appointment scheduled. I'd said nothing about the groceries they consumed, the utilities they used, or the master bedroom they'd taken over while I slept on the living room couch. I see, I said quietly. I apologize if I made you uncomfortable in my home. Victoria relaxed slightly, apparently satisfied with my acquiescence. We just think it's better if you're more aware of how you come across. That night, I couldn't sleep on the uncomfortable couch that had become my bed. I replayed every interaction since Victoria and Kyle had arrived, searching for the behavior she described. I'd been nothing but accommodating. I'd given up my bedroom without complaint when Kyle said the guest room bed hurt his back. I'd cooked their favorite meals. I'd rearranged my schedule around their needs. I'd listened to Kyle's endless stories about his cryptocurrency investments and Victoria's complaints about her job. What I had done was exist in my own home with my own opinions. And apparently, that was the problem. I thought about my late mother's advice. Sometimes people tell you who they are through what they accuse you of being. At the time, I hadn't understood. Now, lying on my own couch in my own living room, it became clear. Victoria wasn't describing my behavior. She was describing her own guilt reflected back at her. And rather than acknowledge it, she decided to make me the villain. I pulled out my phone and opened my notes app. Started documenting. Dates. Conversations. Expenses. Not for revenge. Just for clarity. For truth. The next morning, Kyle made the situation worse. He cornered me in the kitchen while Victoria was showering, his tone confidential, almost conspiratorial. Patricia, I'm glad Victoria talked to you. We've been worried about you living alone at your age. The forgetfulness, the mood swings. It's concerning. I froze with the coffee pot in my hand. Forgetfulness. You forgot about our arrival date. Asked us 3 times when we were leaving. Victoria found you talking to yourself yesterday. He said this gently, as if diagnosing a patient. Each claim was a distortion of reality. They'd changed their arrival date without telling me. I'd asked about departure once, not 3 times. I'd been on a phone call with my sister, not talking to myself. But Kyle presented these twisted facts with such confidence, such concern, that I understood something crucial. This wasn't accidental. This was planned. I appreciate your concern, I said carefully. I'm managing just fine. That's what worries us most, Kyle replied. You don't see the problem. After he left the kitchen, I added this conversation to my notes. Word for word, while it was fresh. That afternoon, I discovered why they were really here. I needed my insurance documents for an upcoming appointment and remembered they were in my bedroom, the bedroom Victoria and Kyle had taken over. I knocked. No answer. I knew they'd gone to the gym, so I opened the door to quickly grab my folder from the desk. That's when I saw the papers spread across my bed. Financial documents. My bank statements. The deed to my house. My retirement account information. Everything pulled from my filing cabinet and laid out like they were studying for a test. My hands shook as I photographed everything with my phone. The angle of the papers, the dates on the statements, the sticky notes in Kyle's handwriting with calculations and circled numbers. They weren't visiting. They were researching. Evaluating my assets. Planning something. I carefully returned everything to exactly how I'd found it, grabbed my insurance folder, and left the room. My mind raced, but I forced myself to breathe slowly. To think clearly. Whatever they were planning, they needed me to appear incompetent or unstable to justify it. The accusations of forgetfulness and mood swings weren't random observations. They were groundwork. I became quieter over the next few days. More agreeable. I asked Victoria for her opinion on simple decisions. What to make for dinner, whether to water the plants. I pretended to forget small things, then acted confused when corrected. It felt wrong, playing into their narrative. But I needed to see how far they'd take this. Victoria grew more confident, more comfortable taking charge. She started answering my phone calls, telling friends I was resting. She rearranged my kitchen cabinets for better organization. She suggested I might want to simplify my finances by adding her name to my accounts. Just for emergencies, Mom. In case something happens and you need help. Kyle backed her up with stories of elderly parents who'd struggled alone. How much easier it was when adult children could step in. How responsible families planned ahead. I nodded along, appearing to consider it. Meanwhile, I documented everything. Photos. Voice memos when they didn't know I was recording. Detailed notes of every conversation, every suggestion, every attempt to paint me as incompetent. People always reveal their true intentions when they think you're too weak to stop them. My sister Caroline called on Thursday. Victoria answered my phone before I could reach it. Hi, Aunt Caroline. Mom's resting right now. Can I have her call you back? Victoria's voice was warm, concerned. The perfect devoted daughter. After she hung up, I asked why she'd answered my phone. You were in the bathroom, Mom. I didn't want Caroline to worry when you didn't answer. She smiled. You know how she gets. But I'd been in the kitchen, not the bathroom. Within sight of my phone. Victoria had simply grabbed it first. I called Caroline back from my bedroom that evening, keeping my voice low. Patricia, what's going on? Caroline asked immediately. Victoria sounded strange. Said you were resting in the middle of the afternoon. How long can you talk? I asked. I told her everything. The accusations. The financial documents. The pattern of behavior designed to make me appear unstable. Caroline listened without interrupting, her silence more powerful than any exclamation. What do you need? She finally asked. A witness. I need someone who knows the truth before they try to rewrite it completely. The breaking point came on Saturday. Victoria announced over breakfast that she'd made me a doctor's appointment. You've been so forgetful lately, Mom. We think you should get checked out. Memory issues can be serious at your age. Kyle nodded supportively. We just want to make sure you're healthy. There's no shame in needing help. I looked at both of them across my kitchen table, eating my food, sleeping in my bed, plotting to take control of my life, and felt something shift inside me. What doctor? I asked quietly. A geriatric specialist, Dr. Phillips. He's excellent with cognitive decline. A geriatric specialist. For memory problems I didn't have. Another piece of their narrative, another step in whatever plan they'd constructed. When's the appointment? Monday at 10. We'll drive you, of course. I nodded slowly, appearing resigned. Thank you for being so thoughtful. After breakfast, I called Dr. Phillips's office myself. Explained I hadn't made an appointment but my daughter had scheduled one without my knowledge or consent. The receptionist was appropriately concerned. Would you like us to cancel it? No, I said carefully. I'd like to keep it. But I want to clarify something in my file first. Sunday afternoon, Kyle made his move. He found me in the garden and sat down on the bench beside me, his expression serious. Patricia, Victoria and I have been talking about your situation. This house is too much for you to maintain alone. The yard work, the repairs, the expenses. I kept pulling weeds, not looking at him. We'd like to propose something. We could move in permanently. Help you manage everything. Eventually, we could take over the mortgage, maybe buy you out so you'd have cash for a nice assisted living facility. There it was. The plan laid out plainly. Take my house, put me in a facility, and access my assets under the guise of helping me. That's very generous, I said slowly. But I'm not ready for assisted living. Not now, Kyle agreed quickly. But it's good to plan ahead. Think about it. We could have the house assessed this week. Start the process. Make it easy for everyone. He pulled out his phone and showed me listings for senior living communities. All the research already done. This wasn't a spontaneous suggestion. This was a presentation they'd been preparing. I looked at the listings, at Kyle's eager expression, at my home in the background, the house I'd bought with my own money, maintained with my own hands, filled with my own memories. I'll think about it, I lied. That evening, I called my lawyer, Nathan Price. We'd handled my estate planning 5 years ago, and I'd kept his number for exactly moments like this. Nathan, I need to understand my rights if someone tries to claim I'm incompetent. His pause was significant. Patricia, what's happening? I explained the situation clearly and factually. The accusations. The doctor's appointment I hadn't made. The pressure to sign over my house. The pattern of behavior designed to paint me as mentally declining. Do you have documentation? Photos, recordings, detailed notes with dates and times. Good. Keep documenting. Don't sign anything. And Patricia? This is elder abuse. Financial exploitation. If they're trying to take your assets by manufacturing incompetence, that's criminal. Criminal. The word hit hard. My own daughter. Committing crimes against me. What should I do? Come see me Monday morning. Bring everything you've documented. We'll make sure your assets are protected and discuss your options. After hanging up, I sat in the darkening living room, my living room, in my house, and let myself feel the full weight of betrayal. Then I set it aside. Grief could come later. Right now, I needed to be strategic. Monday morning arrived. Victoria and Kyle were unusually attentive, making me breakfast, reminding me about the doctor's appointment they'd scheduled. We should leave by 9:30 to be safe, Victoria said. Traffic can be unpredictable. Actually, I have an errand first, I said calmly. I'll meet you there. Victoria's expression tightened. Mom, we should go together. You might get confused about the location. I have GPS, I replied. I'll be fine. The tension in the room shifted. Kyle and Victoria exchanged glances, communicating silently. They didn't want me going alone because they couldn't control the narrative if I arrived independently. It's really better if we go together, Kyle insisted. As a family. I appreciate your concern, I said, grabbing my purse. But I'm perfectly capable of driving myself to a doctor's appointment. I'll see you there. I walked out before they could protest further. In my rearview mirror, I saw them standing in the doorway, Victoria's phone already at her ear. But I wasn't going to Dr. Phillips yet. First, I had an appointment with Nathan Price. And everything was about to change. Nathan's office was downtown, in a building I'd passed hundreds of times. His receptionist showed me into a conference room where Nathan waited with another woman. Patricia, this is Amanda Torres from Adult Protective Services. Given what you've described, I thought it prudent to have her present. Amanda shook my hand firmly. Ms. Reynolds, tell me what's been happening. I laid out everything. Showed them the photos of my financial documents spread on my bed. Played the recordings where Victoria and Kyle discussed my supposed memory problems. Shared the text messages and documented timeline of their escalating control. Amanda took notes, her expression growing more serious. This is textbook financial exploitation. The isolation, the narrative of incompetence, the pressure to transfer assets. How long have they been in your home? 16 days. They were supposed to stay for a weekend. Nathan pulled up documents on his laptop. Your estate plan currently lists Victoria as your power of attorney in case of incapacitation. We need to change that immediately. Can we? I asked. You're clearly competent. We'll document today's meeting, have you evaluated by a neutral physician, and create new directives. If Victoria tries to claim incompetence after this, she'll have to overcome significant evidence to the contrary. Amanda added, I'll open an investigation. We'll need to interview Victoria and Kyle. Document their presence in your home. Review any financial transactions they've attempted. Everything was moving fast, but it felt right. Like I was finally taking back control of my own life. I arrived at Dr. Phillips's office at 9:55. Victoria and Kyle were already in the waiting room, their expressions tight with barely concealed frustration at my independent arrival. Mom, there you are, Victoria said, standing. We were worried. I'm 5 minutes early, I replied pleasantly. When the nurse called my name, Victoria stood to accompany me. I stopped her with a gentle hand. I'd like to speak with the doctor privately first. If he needs family history, I'll call you in. But Mom, I'm entitled to privacy with my physician, I said firmly. Dr. Phillips turned out to be younger than I expected, with kind eyes and a direct manner. Before he could begin his examination, I explained why I was really there. My daughter scheduled this appointment without my knowledge, claiming I have memory problems. I don't. I believe she's trying to establish a medical record of incompetence to support taking control of my finances. I showed him my documentation, the timeline of events, the recordings, Nathan's contact information. Dr. Phillips listened carefully, then conducted a thorough cognitive assessment. Memory tests, problem solving, orientation questions. When he finished, he made detailed notes in my file. Ms. Reynolds, you show no signs of cognitive decline. Your memory is excellent. I'm noting in your record that this appointment was scheduled by a third party without your consent, and that you've expressed concerns about potential elder abuse. In the waiting room, I asked Victoria and Kyle to join me in Dr. Phillips's office. They entered confidently, probably expecting to hear confirmation of my supposed decline. Dr. Phillips didn't waste time. I've completed Ms. Reynolds's evaluation. She shows no signs of memory impairment or cognitive decline. Her mental status is entirely normal for her age. Victoria's face went pale. But she's been so forgetful, confused. We've witnessed it repeatedly. I've documented Ms. Reynolds's concerns about those claims, Dr. Phillips said evenly. I'm also noting that this appointment was made without her knowledge or consent. That's concerning. Kyle leaned forward. Doctor, with all respect, sometimes patients in early decline don't recognize their own symptoms. The family has to advocate. Ms. Reynolds is not in decline, Dr. Phillips interrupted. Early, late, or otherwise. She's cognitively intact, competent, capable of making her own medical and financial decisions. The silence that followed was profound. I watched Victoria and Kyle process what had just happened. Their narrative, carefully constructed over weeks, had been professionally dismantled in minutes. Thank you, doctor, I said quietly. I appreciate your thoroughness. As we left the office, neither Victoria nor Kyle spoke. The drive home was silent, tension filling the car like pressure before a storm. The explosion came that evening. Victoria confronted me in the kitchen, her voice shaking with anger. What did you tell that doctor? What lies did you spread? I told him the truth, I replied calmly. That you scheduled an appointment without my knowledge, claiming I had memory problems that don't exist. You're turning this around on us? We've been trying to help you. By spreading my financial documents on your bed? By telling people I'm confused? By pressuring me to sign over my house? Victoria stepped back, something like shock crossing her face. She hadn't known I'd seen the documents. Kyle appeared in the doorway. Patricia, you're misunderstanding our intentions. We're family. We want what's best for you. What's best for me, I said slowly, is living independently in my own home, managing my own finances, making my own decisions. What you want is access to my assets. That's ridiculous, Victoria snapped. We have our own money. Then why did you calculate the equity in my house? Why research assisted living facilities without my input? Why schedule medical appointments to establish a record of incompetence? The silence stretched. Finally, Kyle spoke, his tone changed. Harder. You can't prove any of that. I pulled out my phone. Actually, I can. I've documented everything. Photos, recordings, dates. And I've already met with my lawyer and Adult Protective Services. Victoria's face went white. You what? I protected myself. The way you apparently weren't going to let me do. They left within an hour. Packed their belongings while I sat in the living room, my phone recording just in case. Victoria cried. Kyle was coldly silent. Neither apologized. At the door, Victoria turned back. You're choosing to believe strangers over your own daughter. You chose to treat me like an obstacle instead of a person, I replied. That's not on me. After they left, the house felt emptier and fuller at the same time. Empty of their presence, their tension, their schemes. Full of peace, quiet, space to breathe. I reclaimed my bedroom. Checked every document in my filing cabinet. Changed my passwords. Called Caroline to let her know it was over. How do you feel? She asked. Relieved. Sad. Betrayed. But mostly relieved. You did the right thing, Caroline said firmly. You protected yourself. That's not selfish. That's survival. That night, I slept in my own bed for the first time in over 2 weeks. The familiar comfort of my own space felt like a gift I'd forgotten I possessed. The investigation moved quickly. Amanda Torres called 2 days later with updates. We interviewed Victoria and Kyle. Their stories were inconsistent and defensive. We've documented everything in your file. If they attempt any further contact or financial manipulation, we can pursue charges. Do you think they will? Honestly? Probably not. People like this prefer easy targets. You've proven you're not easy. She was right. Victoria sent one text message, I hope you're happy, destroying our relationship over money. I didn't respond. Her accusation revealed everything. She still couldn't see her own actions, only my resistance to them. Nathan completed the updates to my estate planning. Power of attorney transferred to Caroline. Clear documentation of my mental competence. Detailed instructions that if anyone challenged my capacity, multiple professional evaluations were required from neutral physicians. You're protected now, Nathan assured me. Victoria would need overwhelming evidence to override these documents. And given what's in Amanda's file, no court would support her. I paid his bill gratefully, understanding that the money was an investment in my future autonomy. Worth every penny. 2 weeks after Victoria and Kyle left, I started rebuilding my life. Not starting over, I'd never stopped being myself. But reclaiming space that had been occupied by their manipulation. I rearranged furniture. Hung new artwork. Invited friends over for coffee without worrying about someone monitoring my conversations. The freedom felt almost disorienting. Caroline visited that weekend. We sat in my garden, drinking wine and watching the sunset. Do you think she'll ever apologize? Caroline asked. I considered this. No. Because she still believes she was helping. That's the dangerous part. She convinced herself that taking control of my life was an act of love. How did you stay so calm through all of it? I didn't always feel calm, I admitted. But I learned something important. When people try to make you doubt your own reality, the best defense is documentation. Facts. Evidence. Truth doesn't need volume to be heard. Caroline raised her glass. To truth, then. And to knowing when to fight back quietly. We clinked glasses as the sun disappeared below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. My garden. My house. My life. All still mine. A month later, Victoria's mother-in-law, Diane, called me. We'd met a few times over the years but weren't close. Her voice was hesitant, embarrassed. Patricia, I hope you don't mind me reaching out. Victoria mentioned you've been having memory issues, and I wanted to check on you. So Victoria was still spreading the narrative, even after everything. I appreciate your concern, Diane. But I'm not having memory issues. I recently had a complete cognitive evaluation. I'm perfectly healthy. Oh. A long pause. Victoria said, well, she said you'd been confused. That she and Kyle had to step in. They tried to step in, I corrected gently. I stopped them. If Victoria told you I'm declining, she's either lying or genuinely believes a version of events that didn't happen. Either way, I'm fine. Another pause. Then, carefully, Patricia, has Victoria asked Kyle's parents for money recently? My attention sharpened. I don't know. Why? She called last week asking for a loan. Said it was for a business opportunity. But if she was trying to help you and that didn't work out, I wonder if money's tighter than they've admitted. After we hung up, I sat with this new information. Victoria and Kyle weren't just opportunistic. They were desperate. That made them more dangerous but also more predictable. I made a note of Diane's call. Added it to my documentation. Just in case. 3 months after they left, I received a certified letter. A law firm representing Victoria, claiming I'd been financially influenced by my sister and lawyer to cut her out of my estate planning. I called Nathan immediately. It's a fishing expedition, he said after reading the letter. They're hoping you'll panic and negotiate. Don't. We have documentation of everything. Their behavior. Your competence. The timeline. Let me respond. Nathan's response was thorough and devastating. He outlined Victoria's actions, included references to the Adult Protective Services investigation, attached Dr. Phillips's evaluation, and made clear that any further harassment would result in a restraining order. The law firm didn't respond. The matter was dropped. But the attempt revealed something important. Victoria hadn't given up. She was just regrouping, looking for another angle. I increased my vigilance. Monitored my credit reports. Set up alerts on all my accounts. Made sure Caroline and Nathan both had copies of all documentation. You don't defeat manipulation once and declare victory. You stay alert. You protect your boundaries. You trust yourself. 6 months later, I ran into Kyle's sister, Melissa, at the grocery store. She looked uncomfortable when she saw me but didn't avoid the conversation. Patricia, hi. How are you? I'm well, thank you. And you? Good. She hesitated. I wanted to say I'm sorry. About what Victoria and Kyle tried to do. Kyle told the family it was a misunderstanding, but Diane told me the real story. I appreciated her directness. Thank you for saying that. I don't know if it helps, but Kyle's parents aren't supporting them anymore. After they heard what happened, they cut off the financial help they'd been providing. Said they raised Kyle better than that. It did help, actually. Not because I wanted Victoria and Kyle to suffer, but because it meant their actions had consequences beyond just losing access to my assets. How's Victoria handling everything? I asked, surprising myself with the question. Melissa shifted her weight. Not great, honestly. She tells everyone you turned on her. That you believed strangers over family. I don't think she sees her part in any of this. That's what I'd expected. Some people never develop the capacity for genuine self-reflection. They'd rather rewrite history than admit mistakes. A year after Victoria and Kyle left my house, I celebrated my 63rd birthday with Caroline, a few close friends, and complete peace of mind. My finances were stable and secure. My health was excellent. My home was entirely my own. I'd started volunteering at a senior center, teaching other elderly people how to recognize and protect themselves from financial exploitation. You'd be surprised how common this is, I told one of my classes. Adult children who convince themselves they're helping while they're actually stealing. Family members who use love as leverage for control. The best defense is always documentation and clear boundaries. One woman raised her hand. What if you can't prove it? What if it's just a feeling that something's wrong? Trust that feeling, I said firmly. Intuition is pattern recognition. Your subconscious is noticing things your conscious mind hasn't organized yet. Document everything. Talk to someone outside the situation. Get professional advice. Don't let anyone convince you that protecting yourself is selfish. After class, several people thanked me, shared their own stories, asked for resources. I realized Victoria's betrayal had given me something unexpected: purpose. I could help other people avoid what I'd experienced. Turn my pain into protection for others. 18 months after the confrontation, Victoria sent an email. Not an apology, I'd stopped expecting that, but an attempt at reconciliation on her terms. Mom, enough time has passed. We should talk. Family is too important to throw away over a misunderstanding. Kyle and I would like to visit next month. I read it 3 times, looking for any acknowledgement of what actually happened. Any recognition of her actions. Any genuine remorse. There was none. Just the framing of our estrangement as my choice, a misunderstanding, something to move past without actually addressing. I drafted 5 different responses. Deleted them all. Finally wrote one sentence: I'm not interested in revisiting a relationship built on manipulation. I wish you well. Caroline asked if I felt guilty about the response. No, I said honestly. I feel clear. She wants access, not relationship. She wants reconciliation without accountability. Those aren't the same thing. Do you miss her? I miss who I thought she was. But that person might never have existed. I was seeing the daughter I wanted, not the person she actually became. It was a painful truth, but truth nonetheless. And I'd learned that facing painful truths was better than living in comfortable lies. 2 years after Victoria and Kyle left, I refinanced my house at a lower rate, finally updated the kitchen I'd been wanting to renovate, and took a trip to Ireland with Caroline. The trip I'd been postponing for years because I'd felt obligated to be available for Victoria's needs. Standing on the cliffs of Moher, wind whipping my hair, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years: complete freedom. Freedom from manipulation. From guilt. From the obligation to set myself on fire to keep someone else warm. You look different, Caroline observed. Lighter. I feel different. I spent so much of my life believing that good mothers sacrifice everything. That saying no to your children is selfishness. I had to learn that protecting yourself isn't betrayal. We watched the waves crash against the cliffs below, the power and beauty of boundaries demonstrated by nature itself. The ocean didn't apologize for where the land ended. The rocks didn't feel guilty for refusing to be eroded. Do you think she'll ever understand what she did? Caroline asked. Probably not. But that's not my responsibility anymore. I can't control her narrative. I can only control my truth. And I had. Completely. Finally. Triumphantly. Now, at 64, I live exactly the life I choose. My home is mine. My finances are protected. My boundaries are clear. I have relationships built on mutual respect, not obligation or manipulation. I still volunteer at the senior center. I've helped dozens of people recognize exploitation before it progressed too far. Taught them to trust themselves, document everything, and understand that protecting yourself is an act of love, not selfishness. Sometimes people ask if I regret how things ended with Victoria. The answer is complicated. I regret that she chose manipulation over honesty. I regret that she valued my assets more than our relationship. I regret that she'll probably never understand the damage she caused. But I don't regret protecting myself. I don't regret choosing truth over comfort. I don't regret proving that calling someone the problem doesn't make it true. Victoria called me the problem because I refused to be her solution, her financial safety net, her retirement plan, her path of least resistance. She misjudged my strength because she'd mistaken kindness for weakness. The truth surfaced on its own, exactly as truth always does. I just had to be patient enough to let it, brave enough to document it, and strong enough to act on it. Sometimes the greatest revenge isn't revenge at all. It's living well. It's protecting your peace. It's refusing to participate in narratives designed to diminish you. I did that. And I'd do it again, every single time. Because I finally learned the most important lesson: you can't set yourself on fire to keep someone else warm, especially if that someone is your own daughter.